We'll go trying to buy these cattle out of the barns or off the videos or whatever we're doing. You're whooping on your calculator, and while they're selling, you're like, oh, that ain't gonna work.
Scratching your head the whole time you're
like,
doing that.
Let's add that again. No, maybe we can cut this cost here, cut this cost there. But
you go and hedge one contract of live cattle, which is 40,000 pounds in live cattle and 50,000 pounds in feeder cattle.
9 times out of 10, the northern guys are getting more of the premium. So if you're up there and your cattle are sitting 10 miles from the feed yard, I mean, they're going to bring more money.
That's a head-on. We live it. The Live Ag Podcast. Quality cattle deserve premium prices. Consign to a Live Ag video auction and capitalize on today's strong market demand. Our upcoming auctions are on your screen and available online at live-ag.com. Contact your local rep to get started. Now, here are your hosts, Ty deCordova and Casey Mabry.
Welcome back to the We Live It podcast. You've got Ty deCordova and myself, Casey Mabry. We're just going to talk through some things here. It's just Ty and I here today. We want to talk about just kind of current events, what's going on in the market, and then
some people send in these questions. We kind of go through these questions and I answer them the best of your ability.
Yeah, if your question's not on here, we struck it off.
Exactly.
Because it may be too hard for us to answer.
Exactly.
So we'll just kind of start off right here, Ty, talking about the market. I mean, what have you been seeing from a feeder cattle standpoint?
Oh, this thing's been pretty wild. I mean, there's been some ups and downs, and you sell one day and you think he's too cheap. You sell another one the next day, and the next day you think he's too high. It's just been pretty volatile here the last couple of weeks, but we're in another little uptrend, it feels like. The demand is out there. I mean, that's one thing that hasn't lacked yet is the demand for some. So I think the number of shortage is really starting to show up. The cow-calf numbers are really starting to show now, and I think we'll see that even more prevalent here in the near future. We're starting to see some heifer retention a little bit, but not as much as you'd think. You can see the sale numbers go back to some percentages of how many heifers are selling and how many heifers the steer-heifer ratio, and that's kind of where we can tell the heifer retention is not quite there yet. You're starting to see some guys buy some to breed some. You can tell that by the price normally. Yep. You see one heifer bring $10 or $15 more than the last one, then you kind of can tell that more than like 90% of the time she's going to go back to get bred. Start seeing some of them guys buying some of them better in heifers to breed. So as far as this market and the feeder cattle market, it's
and these cows have been crazy high.
Oh, the cows are wild. I mean, this cow deal, when you can run across a good deal, I mean, a good set of young cows, if you can find them, you better get ready to pay for them, because that stocker cow market has kind of come on up and followed this feeder cattle deal.
Yeah, there's lots of, I mean, that's the thing I've talked about a lot, where in the physical sale barn side of things on the cow deal, there's a lot of empty trailers showing up, and somebody's wanting to take one home, and so it's almost turned into somewhat of a little bit of a 4-H auction, if you will. Those things are bringing so much money, but
yeah.
Fed cattle wise, I mean, this thing's been very volatile. We put our peak in here probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, where we had a northern market, pushing in the mid 240s. We've seen that set back some. I think a lot of what's going on is we got to the early part of the summer and we had a fed cattle placed against supply. So that would be what everybody thought the numbers were going to be, of about 490,000 head every week is what we thought the numbers of cattle were going to be there. Cheap grain and incentive to carry cattle got the guys in the north particularly to push those cattle out to September and October is what it appears like. So when we got into the first part of the summer, we saw the packer pull kills for the first time. And he pulled the kills from a 480,000 head steer and heifer slaughter each and every week down to about a 435, 440, and upwards to around 450. And that shot the beef prices way higher because it was kind of a short squeeze, got everybody caught off guard from a meat buying standpoint. And then we took that cutout from about 330, 340, and we took it up to 408, 410, something like that. I mean, it was crazy on what those beef prices are going to do. I mean, one item, as an example, would have been a chuck roll. That chuck roll usually in the summertime struggles because it's a roast item. And that item went from, where it was trading at 450, and it went up to, over 750. And so that one item is, that one item is the largest single item on the carcass. And so that attributed to a lot of the gain there. So we saw people get caught short. We got to the middle part of the summer, and I think some of those retail prices those wholesale prices start to hit to the retailer, and then they started raising prices up. I mean, the wild part is you're looking at every news article today is talking about how much beef prices are.
Yeah, but let's touch on that a little bit. Yeah, they've gotten a little higher, but have you priced milk lately?
Oh, it's high.
Have you priced eggs?
Oh, yeah.
For what we're getting for beef is when you go to pricing and looking at all that for what it's bringing.
Or a Starbucks pink drink.
Yeah, our Starbucks pink drink, exactly. I could shake my daughter sometimes. Every time I turn around, she walks in with a Starbucks cup. I'm like, good Lord. I mean, but relevant to everything else, beef's still the best and cheapest source of protein that you can get today. So all these people out here talking about how high it is and how much more higher it's getting, and, you know, I'm not going to fall into that nonsense. Yes, cattle are getting higher. There's no doubt. And the feeder cattle and the fat cattle are getting higher. But the beef, as far as beef in the stores, in my opinion, it's the cheapest, best protein you can buy to this day still.
It's cheaper on a per pound basis than potato chips, right?
All day long. So don't, I mean, all this stuff out there, them guys saying all that, don't get me started on all that. That kind of gets under my craw when they talk about how high beef is. Well, guys, you're going there and paying that for a gallon of milk. Now we're just not getting, now the beef producers just now getting to where they are getting what it's worth. So
no, I totally agree. I just think they put a spotlight on it, and then what that does, if the media is saying, "Hey, this is high," I think it concerns people, and they start to back off, and they move to an alternative protein, right? I mean, we've seen that they won't stick around. They won't go to an alternative protein very long because they're always going to circle back to beef. I mean, because they're going to get a much better eating experience, than. I mean, I know at our house. My wife, we don't like chicken on the menu very often, I guess, unless it's a fast food restaurant. And my kids like the Lord's chicken there at Chick-fil-A for sure,
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think that what we've seen here is we saw the market set back a little bit from a cutout standpoint. So we've taken about $40 or $50 off of that cutout here pretty rapidly. And so like right here where we sit today, Packer was probably coming in with a little bit heavier inventory of meat. Looks like that's cleaned up. That's secondary market stepping in there and buying that meat. We've stopped the cutout from going lower here, at least for a minute. Seasonally, from here forward, we should march this thing higher from a cash market standpoint. But, we didn't really see a seasonal break. We saw the market rally going into that, so it's hard to tell there. So we remain with a lot of uncertainty in this market for sure. We took our summer highs and we've kind of broke a little bit. But if you look in the deferred contracts where we're at right now, feeder cattle are in new all-time highs. Fed cattle are in the deferreds, probably on a closing basis into new all-time highs. And so whatever little speed bump we had there over the last 3 or 4 weeks has recovered quite nicely. Mm-hmm. Cash market in the north stays still with a little bit of a lag to it. I think there's some pockets where cattle are big. You're hearing stories of 1,800, 1,900-pound cattle that need to move. And again, I think that goes back to guys had bought these cattle to hit July, and they carried them September, October, because the cost of gain relative to the market price was so cheap. And it was easier to hold on to those cattle than sell them and go buy another set of cattle, right? So they just kept rolling them back. So I think once we get through that time period or getting through this, I think it's going to be easier to get cattle moved. Like last week, the market's trading in the north. I think there's about a week delay on this podcast, but cattle are trading in the north at 228 to 230. Southern market's 232 to 233. So now we're seeing a southern premium, and again, I think that has a lot to do with when you look at the USDA data on the cattle on feed report. It's showing placements are much lower in the south. Again, a big portion of that is the Mexican border being closed, and those 800,000 or 900,000 cattle up to this point that should have come over here and been on feed. They're not here. And then the other part is we've had cheap grains and a big premium in the north. So there's lots of incentive to move cattle, whether they're out of the east or the west, they can go south or they can go north. Those cattle have been hitting the northern feed yards. And so we got a really big difference between occupancy rates in the south, where feed yards are kind of showing up to where they've got a lot of empty pens versus the north, where they're starting to, show quite a few. Or most of the pens are full up there. So, again, I feel good about the market. Again, I've said this each and every time. This market's very confusing. The market's exceeded most people's expectations, for sure mine, each and every week. And I know there's somebody out there that says this thing's going to go way higher, and they've been right for sure. But again, I think as far as the supply and demand fundamentals, specifically around the U.S. cattle industry, things still feel really good.
Yeah.
Numbers are tight, demand is good, and there's nothing that I can see that really puts a whole lot of pressure on this thing outside of some black swan event.
Looking to sell your cattle now? The Live Ag Exchange puts you in the driver's seat. List your load lots anytime on our 24/7 marketplace and get competitive bids without ever leaving the ranch. Save on transport costs, sell on your schedule, and work with some trusted Live Ag representatives you already know. We handle the rest with the same professional service that you expect from Live Ag. Visit lax.live-ag.com to view listings or consign your cattle today. Or call 1-877-533-6699 to get started.
Yeah, well, that's out of our control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's kind of get into some of these questions. What does it mean to sell cattle on the grid?
Okay, so selling cattle on the grid, this question is really around fed cattle. And so
Yep.
Cattle have been in the feed yard, fed for a certain period of time. So there's basically let's just say two ways to sell cattle in the feed yard. Well, whether you're going to sell them on a live weight basis or dressed. So that'd be just only based on live weight would be on live pounds. Dressed weight would be on a carcass basis. And so then yield goes into play in that and account for that. On the grid, what that means is all the packers offer a value-based grid, and that is to incentivize producers to make better animals and feed them longer and get them right. And so there's a parameter, and so like the first thing would be a dressing percentage is what it's defined as by the academics, and then in the industry terms we call that yield. And so that would be the percentage of the live weight that we hang on the rail as a carcass. And so most of your grids, to get to a dressed weight basis, they take the live cattle market average, and then they take a standard yield. So let's say that's 63.6 or some 63.5. So you take the live market divided by the percentage, 0.635, and that would get us a dressed carcass weight basis. That would be the first calculation in that grid. And then the reason why it's used the word grid is you think about it as like a matrix or a grid. So for every, quality grade, so prime, choice, CAB, select, each one of those are going to have a assigned value. Primes are going to be premiums. And so let's say the average prime premium today is probably $20 a hundredweight. The CAB premiums are probably running between $4 and $6. Let's just call it $5 a hundredweight. Those are both premiums. Choice would be par. And then selects would be a discount, basically where the choice select spread is on the USDA. And then you're going to have, that would be all the quality attributes of it. The yield grade component of it would be a cuttability metric. And so how much fat versus red meat you're going to have there. So those are in USDA yield grades. They're really assigned by vision grades at the camera at the packer level. And so those are a numerical number between 1 and 5. So USDA yield grade 1s and 2s are going to give you a premium, 3s are going to be par, 4s and 5s are going to give you a discount. So each carcass goes in there and has to stand on its own. They're assigned premiums or discounts. So obviously cattle that have more primes and more CABs and yield higher and have better yield grades are going to bring premiums. And then obviously the discounts are going to hit that, hard bones, dark cutters, things like that.
Really? Here's another one that I guess we kind of both can touch on. How are live cattle, feeder cattle, and fat cattle priced differently?
So why don't you start off and talk about feeder cattle? Like what drives value differences between feeder cattle?
Well, there's several different things, several different aspects of them. I mean, the first of all, your weight or where they're located, the freight difference from the feed yard, where they're going to go, genetics, type and kind, and predictability on what they'll do. I mean, so that's kind of where you start your figuring out kind of what you want to give for them. These commercial guys or, private feeder guys will kind of look at that. Freight's a big one. And then kind, like breed type, and then shrink. I mean, they look at the shrink. And then now where these cattle are bringing so much, the slide is a big issue nowadays. I mean, that's one of the biggest things we talk about with a lot of these buyers nowadays is that these slides need to be bigger. And there needs to be some sort of a weight stop. So we're getting into that and kind of telling our producers more about and educating them more about the slides and then how these slides need to be bigger and these weight stops need to be tighter. But there's a lot of different variables on pricing a feeder calf. I mean, a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's a way more complex question than the fat cattle.
Than the fat cattle do. I mean, so you get into, and I would say the biggest deal is the location. I mean, where you're going to start at. I mean, you got a Nebraska feeder cattle yearling that's going to bring a premium. You got a South Texas yearling that's got a little bit more ear to it. I mean, they're going to bring what they're supposed to down there, but there's going to be discounted from a Nebraska black home-raised yearling. I mean, it's just different aspects of the country and what different people are feeding them and where they're going with them. And it ties right back to how they price their live cattle. I mean, how they price their cattle out of the feedlots. So if you got these northern yards up there that are seeing the premium, they're not seeing them today. I guess the southern guys are cutting more of a premium today, but 9 times out of 10, the northern guys are getting more of the premium. So if you're up there and your cattle are sitting 10 miles from the feed yard, I mean, they're going to bring more money.
Absolutely. So fat cattle are priced, I mean, in that world, we talked about the grid a little bit. So, whether you're selling them on the grid, but fat cattle for the most part are all going to bring the same price in the same region. Steers and heifers bring the same amount of money, because we're not worried about gain at that point. Obviously heifers bring a discount to steers in the feed yard because they don't, I mean, as a stocker animal, because they don't gain as much, and obviously they're less efficient. So cost of gain goes into play on that. But cattle bring the most, for the most part, fat cattle in different regions bring, collectively the same price. And you start to kind of have some regional differences based on the, how far they are from the plant and things like that. But
the Live Ag Equipment Exchange connects you with trusted sellers and quality machinery from across the country, all in one place. Browse listings, buy now, or make an offer without ever leaving home. Save time, save travel, and find the tools your operation needs with confidence. Ready to sell your equipment? Call Justin Stelzer today at 817-533-6699 and press 3 to get started today.
Let's see. Here's a real complex question that somebody asked that I hate touching on, but we'll touch on it. How are margin calls in cattle feeding? I would tell you that.
Do you want to go into that subject today? I mean,
so
we can also skip that.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that for a minute. A margin call is in a brokerage account. If you're a hedger, a margin call is, so whenever you put a contract on, you go and hedge one contract of live cattle, which is 40,000 pounds in live cattle and 50,000 pounds in feeder cattle. You're going to have an initial margin. Today in live cattle, it's $3,000 a contract. So you have to put up $3,000 to have the minimum maintenance requirement on that, or the initial margin on that contract. And then if the market goes up, which is going to go against that short futures position, you have to margin that. So you're going to send money in to offset the loss in your account to do that. So margin calls, a lot of people look at those as a bad thing because you're having to call your banker and wire money into that brokerage account. But again, you got to look at it from a business standpoint. And so people probably look at that, and one of the biggest selling factors to these crop insurance agents that sell LRP is there's no margin calls. But again, there's lots of things that are going to come into play on that. So again, like I said, a margin call is you sell a futures contract. You have you have the initial margin on that you have to put up. Like I said, $3,000 per contract. If the market goes against that position, which would be going higher, you'd be sending in money, and that would be a margin call.
Lots of that going on. Lots of that going on here lately. So let's touch on this one. I get this question a lot, and I have a lot of guys that want to understand it, that sell quite a few feeder cattle. I still don't understand the basis price. What's the difference between a basis and a cash price?
So basis, the definition of basis is cash minus futures. And so if you're somebody, whether you're talking about fed cattle or feeder cattle, there are people that trade, a forward contract or a spot price, and that would be utilizing the market to understand what that would be. So that would be just talking about a price on a per hundredweight basis for that. Basis traders are guys that are looking out, and they're hedgers, or hedgers most of the time, and they're looking for a price that they can then attach to either where we're adding it to or subtracting it from the futures market to determine their price. And so some guys want basis. They want to be able to write a basis contract. And so that basis would be, like in fed cattle terms, the basis for May is usually the highest basis month of the year. Futures market's usually under pressure because it's trying to anticipate the spring break, summer break in the market. So futures go lower, cash market stays flat, big positive basis. And so you'll see, Packer bids out there at, 4 and 5 and 6 over for the first part of May that they can go out there and basis contract their cattle. You also see spot basis trades where somebody's, the market's 233 futures right now. You might see somebody in the South come out and go, hey, I'm hedged. The market's going up. The futures market's going up. They might trade those cattle on a basis, 1 or 2 over the board or 1 or 2 back of the board. Where it matters is effectively how you calculate back to what your total revenue is going to be. So probably works the same way in feeder cattle, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's the same way. I mean, it's just you establish a month where you want to call the price, and you're either plus or you're minus where the futures are that day. So it's pretty much the same. So what do we got now?
We got one on here that says, what are break-evens and how do they calculate them? This is a pretty simple one, right? So what is a break-even? Break-even is what is the cost of the cattle plus the cost of the gain to get to an end price, whether you're talking about cattle you're going to kick out on wheat pasture. So what would be the price of the animal plus the freight plus all the things to get it there, interest, cost, all that stuff, totaled up into a total dollars per head divided by what their projected out weight's going to be. So that's projected break even. Happens as way in the feed yard, so we buy a set of cattle off of wheat, we send them to the feed yard. What's the yardage going to cost us? What's the feed going to cost us? What's that projected cost of gain going to be? How many pounds do we think we're going to get, from that standpoint? And I'll tell you today, the feeder cattle are so high that they don't get to a break even probably. So it's probably important to make sure you calculate.
Calculator's broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, the calculator's broke on those deals. Yeah, when we go to trying to buy these stocker cattle, we do figure a break even every. I mean, when we go trying to buy these cattle out of the barns or off the videos or whatever we're doing, you're dang sure whooping on your calculator, and when they're selling, you're like, that ain't gonna work.
Scratching your head the whole time.
You're like,
doing that.
Let's add that again. No, maybe we can cut this cost here, cut this cost there, but
the
I try to keep it a little.
To do lately is just add weight to the out weight. Yeah.
We'll make them weigh 1575. They'll work.
That's right. Or 1875.
Or 1875. Yeah. How do video/online auctions compare to local sale barns? The biggest, there's a couple different. Now there's a place for everything. Don't get me wrong, but on like load lots and big strings of cattle, the video market is the only way to go, in my opinion. And that the reason behind that is that the stress of the cattle, one for all, is you can ship them right off your place on a buyer's truck, so you don't have that shrink and that way up when you go to the sale barn. And it's a lot better handle on the cattle. There's less stress, and for the next guy, especially if you're selling calves off cows, less stress you can put on them animals is the better off you're going to be off at the next stop. Straightening those cattle out, getting them on feed, the less stress is better. And market. I mean, putting those cattle on video, you're not regionalizing yourself and keeping your market, your buyer base right here closed. You're able to get a nationwide buyer base, and that's two of the biggest reasons I say video auctions are the best way on load lots of cattle for sure.
Profit-focused genetics backed by generations of discipline. That's Worthington Angus in Dadeville, Missouri. Their 7th annual fall sale is Saturday, November 1st at noon at the farm, featuring cattle that consistently earn premiums. Can't be there? No problem. Register to bid remotely with Live Ag. Just scan the QR code or hit the link below. Request a catalog at worthingtonangus.com. Worthington Angus, where discipline meets proven genetics.
That makes total sense to me. One of the ones that we've got on here is why do packers sometimes pay more for certain breeds or crosses? So I'll touch on that one. I don't think they pay more for certain breeds. I think it comes down to they're looking for animals. I was a packer buyer in the country, and you're looking for predictability. And the other thing is there's certain breed associations, the Angus Association, that's got certified Angus beef. That's been kind of the leader on that. And there's been lots of copycat programs after that. So it's really driven to where it's which cattle fit the most programs. And so if they fit the most programs, they have the most ability to get more premiums out of that. So ultimately, they chase those. And so, but you'll still have some situations where there's reputation Charolais cross cattle, or there's certain reputation Red Angus cattle that don't necessarily fit into that program at that packer, but those cattle might bring a premium because of predictability. You know, I remember very vividly, there was a set of cattle that I try to buy each and every year, and all the packers did, and they were Charolais Red Angus crosses that were in western Nebraska, and they would bring more than anything because we knew how good they would yield, we knew how good they would grade, and just because they weren't black-hided, we knew that they weren't going to fit into those programs, but we were going to get a lot of red meat out of those. And so, I mean, you probably can get in there, and I'm probably going to say this, and it's not going to be a super popular opinion, but if you get real humpy Brahman cattle, there's some packers that don't want those. And so you'll probably see the ones that don't want those not bid on them. And so those might bring a discount because they've got less bidders on those. But again, they fit from a breeding and that standpoint in certain production systems. And so I don't think, I mean, I'd say from a tendency standpoint, you start to see black-hided cattle probably have more attention on them. And so from a packer standpoint, and the reason why is a lot of those packer programs are kind of stemming off of the CAB brand, which a lot of those cattle can go into that. And then there's a waterfall from that. So if they're CAB, they can go into their packer-owned programs, or they can be downgraded into multiple things. And so they've got lots of versatility to them from that standpoint.
Yeah, they did. Angus Association did a really good job when they pushed. I mean, they did a heck of a job for their producers, put it that way.
Oh, I mean, what they did is they went in there and creamed out the upper 2/3 of choice, and they said, hey, this is better than the lower 1/3 of choice, which they're right. They're going to get they're kind of stuck in between a prime and a low choice, and said, we're going to pull those cattle out. And it started in like 1978. But again, I mean, the consumer had a good eating experience when they went and ate that versus something else. And so a lot of people, you'll hear them say, well, you can't eat the hide, or it doesn't matter. Well, what does matter is they clearly defined what the quality attributes of that cattle were going to be, and that meat. Consumer ate it. Consumer liked it. Consumer says, yes, okay, bring me more CAB. It's probably like what we're getting on with the Wagyu or Akaushi or some of those other, breeds that it's kind of started to go into it, because CAB did a great job. A lot of these Angus programs out there, like if you ate a select Angus, does it make it better than a regular select? The answer is no, or at least I would say no. But man, you're starting to see some of these other breed associations or breed segments, Wagyu, that are trying to, really, but a lot of those programs are driven off of what the marbling score is going to be.
Yeah.
And so then when the predictability of what you're going to eat.
You start to see Red Angus and Charolais guys and them the crosses there that are starting to really pick up and take the slack up there and do a very good job marketing their own too. So I don't want to discount them guys done, but that Angus started it a while back and they done a really good job of it. But you're starting to see the Hereford Association do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Everybody. So
yeah, and again, it goes back to like just segmenting out what the quality of that's going to be. I mean, certain breeds, I guess you can probably get into the dairy crosses. I mean, and from a feeder cattle standpoint, I know my customers have really chased after mostly like the Holstein cross because they've known from a predictability standpoint those animals do different. But it may not even be that they're better than a Jersey or whatever. It's they bought them out of that they're out of that segment. They had success, and they're going to go back to that pot again. So. Then there's just more of them. And I think that's probably where you run into that from that degree. But everybody in the world, we could probably sit in a circle around a campfire and debate breed characters and which one's worth more money. And I guarantee you there's people that get real passionate about that. So I don't even want to get in front of that bus,
Yeah, me neither. Let's finish up here with one more. How do exports impact U.S. cattle prices?
Yeah, so this is a really good topic in my mind. So, and that's global trade. I would tell you, and we can go back and look at whenever BSE hit, in 2001, or I'm probably off on that date there, when we lost our export markets. And so market was running higher. Everything was great. We had a BSE. We lost our export markets. The cattle market dropped considerably. Why it's important for for us to export a lot of meat is, generally speaking, us in the U.S., we like ground beef and we like steaks for the most part. And the steaks, that's what we eat here in the U.S. When you go to a lot of the export markets, and those are going to be mostly like your Asian countries and things like that. We'll talk on that. If you're talking about the top side of the carcass, the rib, the strip, the tender, that's what we consume here in the U.S. That's what the U.S. consumer wants. When we don't have export markets, the bottom side of the carcass, you start talking about navels, short plates, short ribs, flank steaks. Those items end up going into the grinder. The grinder is the catch-all. It has no discretion on what that muscle was. We eat it as a hamburger. That's the cheapest item that we have on any kind of carcass. And so when you export those muscles, you go to navels and short plates. That's in Korea and Japan. That's what they prefer. So we send those over there as a whole muscle. And those guys really want that. We don't necessarily eat that here in the U.S. There's some pockets where you're getting into some areas where we've got more diverse population and cultures to where they're consuming in the U.S., but not like your however many billions of people are living in China, right? So when we're able to export that meat to China, when we're able to export that meat to other countries, we're taking it out of our grinder. If we're taking it out of our grinder, we're adding value to it. And then if we're adding value to it, then that sets back to a higher cutout value and price that's going to go back into the rancher ultimately. So I want to make sure that we don't forget about imports too. So
what I was saying.
Yeah, so imports, we import a lot of meat from Australia, Uruguay, not Brazil right now, but Brazil was like really importing a lot of meat into the U.S., or they were exporting meat into the U.S. And there's some guys out there that would probably say we do not need to import meat from other countries. The interesting thing is, if we're not exporting the bottom part of the carcass that I talked about, navels, short ribs, short plates, those items are about 50% fat. So if we keep those here in the U.S., they're worth about $1.50 to $2 a pound. If we put them in a combo bin or we put them in a box and we send them over to Asia, they're worth quite a bit more. We produce an overabundance of grain in the U.S. We're great farmers, right? So ultimately, we feed that grain to the cattle and we make them fat. Making them fat produces a byproduct, and the animals here in the U.S. are fatter. We need to import that lean material to be able to blend that fat and add value to it. And that's mostly what comes in on imports. Now, you'll see some muscle cuts. Australia sends some muscles over here, but they really don't go to retail. So it's not like we're competing on ribeyes and strip loins and tenderloins and things like that. But we do import quite a bit of meat from Mexico. We import quite a bit of meat from Brazil until all the tariffs happened. And so the dynamics that we got today, and to kind of go back on the market stuff, we've imposed tariffs on a lot of countries. They've started to really kind of disrupt our trade flow, whether it's imports or exports. I know China's changed a lot here recently. Obviously, you're seeing them not buying any U.S. soybeans. And so we want to make sure that we continue to export our meat. If we start to get restrictive on imports and tariffs and things like that, then it can really disrupt the global trade. Because that meat's got to go somewhere. The Brazilian meat's going somewhere. It's going to China today, So I think we got to make sure that we kind of balance that out. I think a good balanced approach is something that's very, very important in all its segments.
Yeah. Well, Casey, once again, we appreciate it. It's always a good discussion with you, and thank you for partnering with us and doing this podcast. I mean, you and the Blue Reef team, y'all been with us from the get-go, and we appreciate that. And I think that most people are enjoying what we're doing here and diving into lots of different industry topics.
There's a couple haters out there that like to talk about body types and things like that, but otherwise,
they just don't have enough. They just don't have enough to do. I mean, they're them keyboard warriors. Is that what they call them? That they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs and ain't got nothing else to do. So they need to find something better to do, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I don't like them talking about my belly, but I got one, or my beard or my head. But y'all make enough fun of me when I shave my beard the other day. I didn't need no other help.
That didn't take you very long to grow that
It
thing
sure
back.
didn't, and it ain't going away now. Kids of mine were like, you got to grow that back, Dad. Your 17th chin keeps showing up. And so, but no, we appreciate everything, and want to thank you and your Blue Reef team for being supporters of us since we've gotten going.
Likewise.
We enjoy this thing. We've been wanting to do it for a long time, and just now finally had the opportunity. God finally blessed us with the opportunity to finally be able to do it, and I enjoy it. Enjoy sitting down and visiting. this episode will come out here pretty swift, but we just had another one that just kind of teased the episode that's coming out after this one. We just sat down with a great friend of ours and a great industry leader with Richard Stover, and was able to talk through him, and y'all don't want to miss that one. For sure. That's it. I believe it comes out next week, so just be sure you tune in next week and get that one.
Yeah, you'll find Ty and I just sat there for about 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and
he's
just listened,
starstruck. I was just kind of starstruck because he's that kind of guy. He's a great mentor of mine, and it's pretty neat. So thank everybody in social media land for joining us today and watching us. Don't forget, hit subscribe and like. If you have any questions, Katy at live-ag.com. If you want to forward or email those to her. If you want to reach out for a marketing package or to maybe to be on the show or to do some kind of marketing with us, it's Katy at live-ag.com. Thanks, everybody, and God bless.